28?
Yeah. So, okay, should we just start? What, have you started rolling? Okay, so, I mean, I guess the question that's most in my mind is like, how do you see, or what brought you from acting to philosophy, or philosophy to acting?
Okay. Well, it's a question I'm still trying to formulate a proper answer, because I mainly came here out of curiosity, and as cheesy as it may sound, acting is curiosity. I mean, so it is also to fulfill a kind of a post, like a pendant assignment I had when I was a kid. As soon as I left school at 18, I started to study philosophy in UNAM, in the University of Mexico. So there was a student strike, and then I left, and then I ended up studying theater in London. And so I always wanted to go back to school. So that's more or less kind of the practical reasons why I'm here. The other is because there is, I think there is a very strong kind of, just like any other form of narrative, acting has a narrative in itself, but you do philosophy a lot. You utilize philosophy in whatever, in a mundane terms, or in a very kind of thorough and phenomenological experience. You know, I mean, you really apply it. You really apply it without knowing, sometimes without consciously. You really go into it, because I mean, you play with the interpretation of the other, the embodiment of another, the empathy, narrative structure, first, second, third act. The mythical, I mean, psychoanalysis definitely plays a big part. I mean, the narrative of psychoanalysis plays a big part in theater as well, in acting. So they all come together, and I think for me it's also a good thing to kind of have this more this inquiry that naturally I've been doing, have it kind of put together more in a school as well, where I'm not playing out, I'm more listening, being the receptive kind of, and because that hardly happens when you're acting. It's like when you're acting, you're putting your face as well. So
Embodying a character, but clearly still performing you and playing you, right?
Yeah.
Do you need to love a character to play it?
You need the desire to fall in love with a character, and you need the desire to fall in love with the people you're acting with as well.
Okay.
I think those two are necessary. But this desire starts from separating from what you already kind of the pre-assumptions or prejudice or things that you might already think about the subject. I mean, I think they always give this example, like how to play Hitler, for example. You end up loving Hitler. There is this thing of emotional empathy that, in a way, can be a form of love. I mean, can be getting close to someone, being with that someone, and that emotional empathy is able to. You're hoping that you're able to achieve it, and that is mostly what ends up happening, because really there is no real identification. You don't really identify. You don't really. I think there's these terms that have been misused. Like identify with a character. That doesn't exist. I mean, you start off from a very foreigner's perspective into this, and the closest you can get is just an emotional empathy.
Have characters and clearly the script and the story, the narrative, and this you try to feel for, and as you said, you try to also feel for the people that are part of the world that you're creating. But I mean, surely there will be instances where you just can't stand someone else in the cast, no?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, how do How does that work?
How do you deal with that? It's tough. It's tough because it breaks the they call it an act of faith to do a movie or to do a play, you know? And it is an act of faith because you're working on something that ultimately is not going to be palpable, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's going to become something, but what's the use of that? I mean, you hope that it transcends, but you never also... I mean, I guess with a scientific paper or doing a philosophical claim, you know, on an issue or whatever, you're running a bigger risk, you know, of having to prove it or having to have, like, you know. And in film or theater, you don't. You really can just let it out there without just seeing what happens, you know, with a pure joy of, like, let's see where this leads us to. So this kind of attitude of hoping that there's going to be an alchemy of some sort or an accident of some sort that creates this transcendence in the work that you're doing comes from a very huge kind of contract between the people that you're working with, faith, you know, like let's fall in love with each other kind of thing. But it does happen that you end up not doing that. So at that point, the different mediums kind of save you, you know. Theater, well, if you're professional enough, like you can hate each other to death, but you can just do the job, right? And you kind of, it's your responsibilities with your hands. And in film, it's the director that always kind of makes things fall into place, and nobody will hear that Ingrid Bergman and what's the guy Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart, hated each other big time, apparently. I mean, that's what they say.
So you think the director has a bigger role in film than in theater?
Absolutely, yeah. In theater, it's more like Wolfgang would say, he's a community organizer, you know? In theater is more that kind of like community organizer, but that also has kind of, it's part of the community that throws up ideas, you know? Throws ideas and then we try to get them out, and the actors try it out and everything. And you know, you find it together, you know, and you play it together. But in film, the director is the one that is in control all the time. For example, the character art, you know, doesn't belong to the actors, really. Because there's films that might not end up, there's scenes that you do in a film that might not end up in the final cut, you know?
So basically she's in control of us now.
She's in control right now. She's gonna make this very conversation sound like something genius. And if it's not genius, it's her fault.
Basically. But I mean, it sounds like you're. I mean, sort of bringing it back to the whole, like, you know, I guess love. I mean, let's just call it love. That's maybe where the philosophy and the acting really come in the same spot. Because I mean, it's essentially. There's not much use in philosophy. It's love of the idea and love of the thought and pursuit. You don't really ever know where it goes. I mean, it doesn't even claim to solve anything or problems. It just attends to a question or a thought that somehow has been bugging you. And maybe only you. Maybe no one else even cares about the idea, and then you just do it.
Exactly. That's why. There is a feeling that actors are kind of, or acting is inherently lazy, no? Because it goes a certain path and the rest is just like, let's see how it goes, you know? And it does have that kind of quality, which I like. I mean, it's a kind of, I like that can be transcended into the species that actors become in real life, you know? Actors in real life are kind of, most of them, you know, it can be unbearable, but they're extrovert, they speak out, they say their thing, they feel a bit more secure about fucking things up, you know? If you make a mistake, then it doesn't matter, then it's not such a big deal. It's not that actors are less insecure than other people. Actually, I would argue that actors are more insecure than other people, but that's the insecurity helps them to become better actors, you know, trying out things that on stage, you know, there's no problem. down in real life maybe, but on stage you can get away with it. I mean, nobody's gonna judge you. So
but I guess even on film and all, actually, people end up judging the celebrity, not actors.
oh yeah.
And then that's the
Yeah, that is a thing, but that is like some of the many levels of acting. I mean, that's kind of an industrial appropriation that has a reason for being. I mean, it's not just because a company said we're gonna make stars. No, I mean there is a kind of real kind of desire to watch that actor do something again, or want to see Tarzan being played by this guy, so that, and him saving the world. You know, I mean there is this kind of, it does fit into that, and Zizek is the best for explaining why this happens. No, but there is also an argument that Peter Brook gives, which is quite interesting. It's like he just gives examples of, let's say you grab 100 people random in humanity, you know, like, and you say, okay, you're gonna walk on the stage from left to right, just from left to right. There's gonna be at least 2 people of those 100 people that are not gonna be able to just walk from left to right,
Okay.
for whatever reason. But just like simple, just walk from left to right. People are gonna, no, why? Well, you know, people are gonna, there's at least 2 that are gonna be hesitant of doing it. Then you say, okay, walk from left to right with a jug of water and with a full audience. No, I think that's where half of the people can do it and half can't, or won't do it.
Okay.
It's not that they can't. And the thing, he starts to give more examples up to the point that he says, now that walk from left to right with a full audience, with an imaginary jug of water, and have that jug of water fall in the middle of your journey, and walk to the right. He says that is the only people that will do it, in a way. It's a very limited number, no? It's a very limited number, and he says that's why actors get paid so much, because it seems that they are the only ones that can do that. You know, I would argue that everyone can.
And I guess the star sort of becomes when not only are they the ones that do it and you won't do it, but when they do it, you almost wish that you were doing it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is that kind of. I mean, I think you know, in those moments of abyss, no? Whatever you do in life, no? You're all of a sudden on the edge of the cliff. You wish there was like an army behind you, no? Or like someone that thinks the same way that you do, or you know, or someone that supports that, and I think that is something that in a way we exercise with characters, you know. In a way, it's like I am there with you, with that person in that moment of abyss, no, and I think that's what happens. I mean, because the only person I've ever wanted to be like. I mean, now when I was a kid, of course, every film I would see, I would play that I was this or that, But now, the only character I see and I want to be like that is the Godfather. Really, but not play the Godfather. I want to be the Godfather. Yeah, but that's just I'm just projecting. But
Which one? The original one, or when Michael takes over?
I think Michael more kind of the original one is a bit more necessity, no?
Yeah.
Michael is kind of more chooses to go, and I like that kind of freedom of choice. The more he walks out, the more they suck him in, you know, that kind of thing.
So that's why when we go to Mexico, you remove the mafia.
That's why I mentioned that. Yeah. No, but I like that. I like that thing of. I guess it has to do with recently experimenting being a father.